Hello everybody, it's me again. Now I want to talk a bit about racing games. As you might know, I was playing Gran Turismo Sport online for a couple of years since it came out in 2017. But this wasn't the only Gran Turismo I played. I started out in, when was it? 2005. Started out with Gran Turismo 4 on PlayStation 2. I can still play it on my old PlayStation 3, which is downward compatible, but the steering and all the buttons, they don't really work that well with the PlayStation 2 software. For example, the X button is just the gamepad is way too sensitive for this game, for a PlayStation 2 game. You press the X button just slightly to accelerate and it immediately goes to full throttle, so it doesn't work very well. And I got this one, PlayStation 3 5 Prologue, then the actual 5, then Gran Turismo 5 Academy Edition, and I also got, let's have a look, I also got 6, but I borrowed it to a former buddy of mine. Haven't got it back yet, but it doesn't matter really because this PlayStation is so old. It breaks down like after 10 minutes. It overheats. It's just full of dust in the grill, you could say. Let's just switch that back to full screen. All right. So. And obviously I've got Gran Turismo Sport for PlayStation 4. I got the PlayStation 4 Pro right here, just above my stereo. And what you can see now, let's go into the internal data. Get memory card for PlayStation 2 games. Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that's Gran Turismo 4, GTA 3, Formula 1, Star Wars Battlefront, San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, and these are the PlayStation 3 games, down here, and some NASCAR, 5, Formula 1, and that's Gran Turismo 6, but also got Formula 1 and also Superstars V8, but it isn't that realistic. I lost interest in that game. Some James Bond games, FIFA. Yeah, but I don't play those games anymore. Well, but the point is, why did I stop playing Gran Turismo Sport? Well, all the previous Gran Turismo games, let's say 4. I think Gran Turismo 5 was also aimed at online gaming, but with Gran Turismo Sport, it's very obvious that the game is not intended to be played offline. The AIs are very, very bad. The only way they can make it interesting is that they give them some advantage by starting ahead of you, and so you have to. Then the challenge is to pass them, but they don't really defend their lines. They drive very cautiously and very. Not like a real race driver would drive. So if you want to have fun, you have to play it online. And the problem with online gaming is, let's turn that off because the fan comes on. The problem with online gaming is, you've got some people out there who are not interested in having a real life racing experience. You know, they really want to win and they don't care how. And well, Gran Turismo, they figured a way out to make people drive realistically, you know, to make them drive more fairly. So they figured out a way to penalize drivers who ram into other drivers, but there are some people out there who figured out a way to use that penalizing system, this penalty system, for their advantage. And this is the way it works. I figured it out quite at the end. I was always mad why I get a penalty when someone else is ramming into me. But this is how it works. Let's assume you're a driver who's ahead and you've got someone coming from the back who's closing up. And you feel like, oh my god, he's going to pass me, I have to do something about it. So what do? When there's a corner coming up, when there's a turn coming up, you take the inside line and coast towards the apex of the corner. So obviously the other driver who's trying to pass you will choose the outside lane as it's the only line which is available. What do you do if you want to take him out without getting any penalties? Listen up. You just open up the steering. You open up the steering. You just you stop steering to the inside. Let's assume it's a right turn. And you just stop turning to the right. Just dive into the outside lane, to the outside line, where the other driver is, and ram into him. By not turning at all. You ram into him by not turning at all. So, obviously the driver on the outside who's trying to pass you, he obviously turns to the right because he has no space to the outside. He's on the outside then. There's no way he can do the same. So he turns to the right in this case and rams into the driver who's just steering dead ahead. What the system thinks is happening is that the driver on the outside lane who is turning ram into the driver on the inside lane while as in fact the outside driver rammed into the other car, but he did not steer. So the penalty goes to the one on the outside, although he did not do anything wrong. This is what's happening in online gaming. And this is very, very frustrating because even though you're the better driver and you do everything wrong, the system penalizes you. And something else. Sometimes when I'm ahead and there's a driver who it might be faster on a free track, okay, he still cannot get past. This happens, as they say, catching up is one thing, getting past is another. So they get frustrated, they feel like, oh my god, I'm faster, I deserve to be ahead, which is not the case. Racing is both. Driving quick on an empty track and also finding a way past other drivers. So they get frustrated, they cannot deal with it, stucking behind another driver who blocks them. For example, you're coming up to a hairpin and you brake earlier but into the inside, you leave him the outside lane but then dive out to block him then while he is trying to come to the inside. You go well, I haven't thought this through. Let's try to explain this in words. So you have a hairpin, there's a hairpin. Obviously you go from the outside to the apex, then to the outside again when you get through the hairpin. So what you do to block is you go to the inside earlier, brake, and while you're at the apex, brake even more so that the other driver who took the outside lane is trying to get past you on the exit cannot do that because you block the inside lane. So you do that 2 times, they get really pissed. What do? Well, they just ram in behind you. So, and this happened to me a couple of times, and then afterwards, after the race in the chat, I get a message like, "This is payback." And I'm like, well, congratulations, you idiot. This is not motor racing, this is not racing, this is just his twisted judgment that he feels that he deserves to get ahead because he might be quicker on a lap time, on the qualifying lap. But this is not racing, this is just stupid. So I played this game since it came out in 2017, and I think it was October, and I stopped playing it a couple of weeks ago. Just deleted my account. I didn't care for all the progress I did. just wasn't worth it anymore. And yeah, that was that. But let me say another thing. I mean, it says on the pack, on the cover, the real driving simulator, and well, it's pretty realistic. I don't want to argue with that, but let me tell you something else. When it comes to driving physics, this game, although it's older and the graphics are not that good, or not as good, this game is way more realistic. You know, first of all, in the GT3 class, or Group 3 as it's called in Gran Turismo, why is there ABS? Why is there anti-lock braking? Real GT3 drivers, they don't have ABS. So, also another thing, well, let's not get into details. There are so many things that cannot happen in this game which could happen in real life. For example, you lock up the tires when ABS is off and the car spins off its track. Cannot happen. Tires lock up, you just slide straight ahead, no way in turning sideways or spinning around. Which would be realistic, but it doesn't happen. So I think they only made this game as realistic as it can be for the average idiot to get along. So this game is hardcore realism, you know? Each load on each tire has been simulated in real time, as well as the traction, which is affected by the load of the tire. Tire temperature, wear, all tire temperature is not simulated in Gran Turismo. At least it's not displayed. I don't think there's any simulation for that. So don't have such a high opinion of yourself if you're good in Gran Turismo Sport, because it's not really realistic. If you get into a real car and you try to drive the same way you do in Gran Turismo, won't happen. Also, you don't have to adjust the steering amount. You just turn with the gamepad to the maximum, to the max, to the lock, you know, and the car automatically, or the game automatically turns in. The input you put into the gamepad is not linear with what it's going to be in the game. You turn into full lock, and the car steers just as much as the car can, as the tires have traction. So you put in full lock, but the tires don't go into full lock in the game. They just turn as much as they can before they understeer, before the car understeers. So, and well, these are all, there are so many other things I cannot go into detail right now, but don't have such a high opinion of yourself. If you're good in Gran Turismo Sport, you probably won't make it in real life as a real racing driver. And another thing about those trolls in the game, I don't care what they meant with payback. This is not that important to me. It's just a video game. You know, I'm from a generation which played offline. For me, a video game is just for fun. And I feel like there are so many gamers out there who take these games so serious. They actually get enslaved by the game. You know, it's so important for them that they have the good stats, all the victories, and I don't know what, you know. And for me, a video game like that is just something to pass the time in a fun way, and it's not that important to me how it looks to other people. Sometimes I like to take an old muscle car and have some fun with it in the lobby race, and I know it's not the fastest car, but it's the most fun car to drive because it has a solid axle. It's very hard to keep control of it at the limit. And most of the other drivers, they all take the same cars. You know, they look it up. You know, they go into some kind of forum or into a chat room. And they all discuss what's the fastest car, and that's the car they're going to drive. But I drive cars which are fun to drive, which are cool, and I don't care if others say, "Oh my God, this is such a rubbish car," you know, this car's rubbish. Why do you take this car? I don't care, you know. It's a challenge, and sometimes it happens that I take an old muscle car. I don't know, a Camaro, Mustang Mark One, or Plymouth Super B, and it's so much fun to pass someone else in an M3 or 911 Porsche, you know, just to rub it into their nose that although I have a car with a much less sophisticated suspension, I still have the skill to compensate for their better, more sophisticated cars. So it's kind of funny. It's very much fun for me to do that, and yeah, I don't care how it looks for other people.